You ever rewatch a cartoon from your childhood and think, hold up, this wasn't just for kids? Turns out a lot of the shows we grew up on were way deeper than we realized. Hidden messages, emotional storylines, dark themes, and jokes that went straight over our heads. So today we're diving into 10 cartoons that hit different when you're an adult. Some will make you laugh, others might hit you right in the feels, but all of them deserve a second watch. But before we jump in, if you grew up on Saturday morning cartoons, Cartoon Network marathons, or Nickelodeon classics, subscribe to Animated Memories, where we break down the shows that shaped our childhood and reveal the grown-up truths hiding behind the animation. All right, let's rewind time, starting with number 1.
This isn't gonna be easy.
Just stick to the training. You can do it.
Hey, Benson, sorry about what I said before. Even though you're a jerk most of the time, you're still a good friend.
Just get in there and win that stupid hat for Rigby.
At first, regular show just looked like one long fever dream. A blue jay and a raccoon work at a park. They slack off, fight video game bosses, get yelled at by a gumball machine, and somehow end up battling evil hot dogs from another dimension? Yeah, as kids we thought, this is hilarious. As adults we think, wait, this is relatable. Because regular show wasn't about the randomness. It was about that weird in-between stage of life. You're not a kid anymore, but you're not really an adult either. You're in your 20s, stuck in a dead-end job, no idea what you're doing, just trying to make rent and not lose your friends along the way. And suddenly, Mordecai and Rigby's laziness hits different. Their fear of responsibility makes sense. Their mistakes in love, work, and life? Yeah, we've been there. What really sneaks up on you is how much the show evolves. Characters grow, relationships shift, people move on. And without even realizing it, this weird cartoon starts quietly teaching you that growing up is awkward and hard, that some friendships don't last forever, that you can't pause time or skip to the good part. You just have to show up for your life. Regular show starts with memes and ends with a full circle emotional finale that makes you want to call your old friends and say, hey, thanks for being there. It's not just a cartoon about slackers, it's about the slow, weird, painful process of becoming someone new. And that's not regular at all.
Come on out, little boy. You're about to be...
As kids, we thought Avatar, The Last Airbender, was just cool fights and funny animals. But rewatch it now, and you realize it's actually one of the deepest stories ever told in animation. It's about a 12-year-old pacifist forced to end a 100-year war. It's about generational trauma, colonialism, and the cost of power. And somehow, it's still funny. Warm and full of hope. And then there's Zuko, maybe the most relatable villain turned hero in cartoon history. His story, it's not about beating the bad guy, it's about beating the version of yourself that you were told to be. Every character, every nation, every episode, layered with meaning. Fire represents destruction, but also rebirth. The Earth Kingdom? Stubbornness and strength. The air nomads? Lost wisdom. We didn't catch it as kids, but as adults, it hits so much harder. And just when you're soaking all that in, boom, Uncle Iroh drops a line that makes you question your whole existence.
Sometimes life is like this dark tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you just keep moving, you will come to a better place.
He's the young that day who ran his train right off the tracks and drove it straight to... Hey!
Now, this one was quiet. It wasn't flashy, no superpowers, no crazy villains, but somehow Hey Arnold stuck with us. And when you rewatch it as an adult, you realize why. This show didn't just entertain us, it prepared us for life. It tackled real issues: poverty, immigration, bullying, broken families, even mental health. And it did it with empathy. Think about it. Arnold lived in a boarding house full of weird, complex adults. He was basically raised by his grandparents, who were loving, but also clearly dealing with their own past traumas. Helga, we laughed at her as kids, but rewatch her story now and it's heartbreaking. She's not just mean. She's neglected, desperate for love, and hiding behind anger because no one sees her. Even side characters got full episodes with deep emotional arcs. Pigeon Man, Mr. Yun, Stoop Kid, they weren't jokes, they were people, and the show asked us to understand them.
This is awful! Who did this?
People, Arnold.
We can rebuild the cages and sweep up. Your birds will come back.
Of course they'll come back. They're birds. I trust them. I understand them. It's people I don't understand.
If you rewatch Samurai Jack as an adult, you realize it was never about the action. It was about loneliness, identity, and the weight of never finding peace. As kids, we were hyped by the sword fights and cool robots, but now we feel the silence, the long pauses, the vast, empty landscapes, the moments where nothing is said because nothing needs to be said. Samurai Jack is basically a wandering soul, stuck in a world that doesn't belong to him, fighting not just Aku, but the feeling that he'll never get home. Every episode plays like a poem. Minimal dialogue, stunning visuals, and a sadness that lingers. There's an episode where Jack helps a warrior, only to watch him die. Another where he almost finds love, but can't stay. That's the kind of quiet tragedy this show deals in. And the art style, it's not just unique, it's intentional. The angles, the colors, the way fight scenes are choreographed like dance. It's cinematic, not cartoonish. As a kid, you watched it and thought, Jack is cool. But as an adult, you realize Jack is tired, and he keeps going anyway. Now this next one, yeah, it messed us up as kids, but we didn't even realize why. Courage the Cowardly Dog was marketed as a goofy horror cartoon. A pink dog in the middle of nowhere, saving his owners from monsters, aliens, and whatever that creepy slab thing was. But rewatch it as an adult, and it's not just creepy, it's existential. This show was about fear, isolation, anxiety. Courage wasn't just scared because of monsters, he was scared because he was alone. A tiny, helpless dog, constantly trying to protect the only family he has, even when they don't understand him. And the villains? Yeah, they were terrifying, but a lot of them were just misunderstood. They weren't evil. They were sad, lost, even symbolic of deeper things like aging, mental illness, or the unknown. The phrase, in the middle of nowhere, isn't just a location, it's a mood. That feeling of being out there, on your own, with no one coming to help. And courage? He never gives up. He shakes. He screams. But he still fights, because that's what love looks like, even when no one says thank you. As a kid, it was nightmare fuel. As an adult, it's a quiet, surreal masterpiece about bravery in the face of fear. When you were a kid, Billy and Mandy probably felt like the weirdest cartoon on TV. It had death, demons, monsters, and somehow it was hilarious. But when you rewatch it as an adult, you start to realize this show wasn't just weird. It was brilliantly dark and weirdly honest about life. Because think about it, the literal Grim Reaper is forced to hang out with two kids, one who's so clueless it's borderline disturbing, and the other emotionally numb and deadpan. And that's the whole premise. They beat death. And what do they do with that power? They treat him like a babysitter. But under the chaos and sarcasm, Billy and Mandy is quietly dealing with huge themes: existential dread, emotional detachment, the absurdity of the universe. It's nihilism in a cartoon. And you know what? It worked because it never sugarcoated anything. Bad things happened. Characters suffered. The world was unfair and the show didn't pretend otherwise. But instead of despair, it gave us dark laughter. A way to say, yeah, life's messed up, but at least we can laugh at it. That's why it hits different now. It's not just about gross out humor. It's about how humor becomes survival when things get hard. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy was one of the first shows to say, yep, everything's chaos, but that doesn't mean we stop living. It just means we get a little weirder.
Turner, what did you wish for?
Okay, don't be mad, but I secretly wish that everyone would stop aging so that I could stay 10 years old and keep my fairies forever.
What? When did you make this wish?
50 years ago?
As kids, Fairly OddParents was the ultimate wish fulfillment fantasy. Magic wands, instant wishes, a talking fish. What more could a 10-year-old want? But when you rewatch it as an adult, you start to see what was hiding underneath the glitter and chaos. This show is about a lonely kid, ignored by his parents, bullied by his babysitter, just trying to escape. And those fairy godparents, they're not just comic relief, they're a coping mechanism, a way for Timmy to feel in control in a world that constantly treats him like he doesn't matter. And the wishes, they almost always backfire. Because this show was secretly teaching us something. You can't shortcut your way through life, and sometimes what you want isn't what you need. Rewatching now, you notice how often Timmy uses magic to fix things, only to learn that he has to face reality eventually.
Meet everybody.
Yes!
Charlie, TV, Viola, Kim Kilwan, and this sweet little lady is Jake Jr.
Aw!
Okay, let's talk about a show that completely transformed when we rewatched it as adults. Adventure Time. As kids, it was just fun. Talking dogs, candy kingdoms, weird jokes, random singing swords. But now, you start to realize that Adventure Time was never random. It was layered, emotional, healing. This is a show that masks deep existential themes under colorful, whimsical chaos, because beneath the surface, it's about loss, identity, growing up in a broken world. You find out the land of Ooh is actually a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and suddenly all the nonsense starts to make sense. Finn? He's not just a goofy hero. He's a kid trying to find his place after being abandoned, wrestling with trauma, heartbreak, even existential dread, and the characters around him. Princess Bubblegum, a ruler whose kindness is wrapped in control issues. Marceline, a vampire haunted by memory and loneliness. Ice King, what seemed like comic relief becomes a tragic story about mental illness and lost identity. Every joke, every song, every adventure, it was never just for laughs. It was building towards something. It was showing us that healing isn't linear, that people change. Friendships shift, that sometimes the best thing you can do is keep going. Rewatching it now, you feel the heartbreak in the silence, the weight in the weird, the beauty in the broken. Adventure Time didn't just grow with us, it grew us. And when the final episode fades out with that quiet, hopeful song, you realize this was never just a cartoon. It was a lesson in how to live. At first glance, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends looks like just another zany cartoon with talking blobs and weird creatures running around. But when you rewatch it as an adult, you realize this show was secretly about something way deeper: letting go, growing up, and learning to say goodbye. The entire premise is based on a painful truth. When kids grow up, they abandon the imaginary friends they once loved. And those friends, they don't just vanish. They go to Foster's, a home full of forgotten dreams and childhood memories, just waiting to be wanted again. That's heavy. And then there's Mac and Blue. On the surface, it's just a fun duo, but Mac is a kid dealing with neglect, and Blue, he's more than just a friend. He's Mac's way of coping. The show constantly asks questions like, when is it time to move on? Is it okay to let go of something you love? And what does it mean to grow up without losing your imagination? Some episodes hit hard, like when Eduardo's scared because no one wants him, or when Wilt blames himself for something he couldn't control. Each character has a backstory filled with sadness, rejection, and a deep need to belong. But the genius? It balances all that emotion with wild humor, slick animation, and Craig McCracken's signature charm. As kids, we saw it as chaos. As adults, it's a gentle gut punch about growing up and realizing that sometimes the things we leave behind still remember us. When we were younger, Steven Universe felt like a colorful, quirky show with magic gems, fusion dances, and cookie cats. But rewatch it as an adult, and suddenly it's a full-blown emotional awakening. Because under all the pastel colors and catchy songs, this show is about trauma, identity, and healing. It doesn't shy away from hard questions. What do we inherit from the people who came before us? How do we forgive? Not just others, but ourselves. Can we break the cycle, or are we doomed to repeat it? Steven isn't just a cheerful protagonist. He's a kid raised in the aftermath of war, trying to clean up emotional messes that aren't even his fault. The gems, each one is dealing with grief, guilt, or identity in their own way. They're strong, yes, but also deeply flawed and constantly learning how to be more than what they were made to be. And that's the real power of this show. It teaches us that strength doesn't come from fighting. It comes from understanding, from listening, from softness. As kids, we saw magic battles and fusion dances, but now we see therapy, boundaries, emotional growth, and the long, painful journey of becoming whole. And that's just a glimpse of why these shows hit harder when we're grown. Cartoons weren't just noise in the background, they were our first stories, our first heroes, and sometimes our first lessons about life. If you felt even a little wave of nostalgia watching this, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe to Animation Memories, where we remind you of the cartoons that shaped our childhood. And hey, this list is just getting started. What show do you think we all need to rewatch as adults? Drop it in the comments. Let's keep the memory lane rolling.